Tales of Arise is the latest entry in the Tales of series. It was made by Bandai Namco. I played Tales of Symphonia, Cesteria and Berseria, but in this video Arise will not be compared to them. Nonetheless, it has to be said that I was going into the game with certain expectations in regards to world building, story and combat. What I can say beforehand is that the story of Arise is very surprising and has its highs. In this video, like some of my previous ones, I will go through the complete main story, some of the sub-stories, and I will offer my opinions along the way. When it comes to opinions, there are some that criticize Arise heavily for being pay to win, as this game has microtransactions way beyond cosmetics, level ups and other huge benefits. For this purpose I played the game twice, one time without any of the pay to win features, and the other time with all of them. So you might see some strange differences, which will come from the different playthroughs. First up, I can only recommend to always skip the intro video of any anime game. It always has spoilers in it. With intro video I mean the video that plays before you start a new game. Before we do that, we already notice a strange marketing effort from Bandai. By having a news flash. I played offline, so you won't get any hidden advertisement. This one is probably okay in the main menu. For the start of the game I left everything on default and changed the game later to hard, after I found out that you get better loot when playing on harder difficulties. I will now let the real introduction play for itself.
In ages long past, it was believed that Mother Dana was indestructible and everlasting. Rena, on the other hand, was thought to be the domain of the gods, a paradise where the souls of the departed could rest forevermore. Oh, how wrong we were. In the face of Rena's unimaginable technology, its soldiers, clad in huge, shining armor, and its fearsome beasts, known as Zeugles, the prosperity and bounty of Dana all but disappeared overnight. That was 300 years ago. The world of Dana fell under Renan rule, and its new masters split the land into 5 distinct realms. And now today, Orbis Calaglia, one of the Renan's 5 realms. It is ruled over by the tyrant Balsef, Lord of the Firemaster Corps. Unrelenting fire scorches this barren wasteland. Dust storms course over the rocks and crags, and no relief is to be found from the oppressive heat. The Danan people toil as slaves. Day after day they suffer, under the ruthless oppression of the Renan soldiers, with only one hope of escape: death. Only in death is their agony finally brought to an end. They have forgotten what it means to be free. So complete is the Renan's domination.
What we have to notice here is that the invading force from the twin planet Rena is at least a Type 1 civilization on the Kardashev scale. They are able to traverse between planets, which means they are above our own real-world civilization, which is only at 0.75. We play as a slave by the name of Iron Mask, which comes from, well, the Iron Mask you wear. You also don't feel any pain or have any memories of before you were found. We find out that the Danan people are treated horrible. They only wear rags, are malnourished and have to do heavy labor. They also have a stone inside their hand, which is why they are called embedded. This stone was forced onto the Danans by the Renans. Right now we don't know why. We need to find Dog, who found Iron Mask to begin with and acts as a healer for the slaves. Let's talk about world building and why we play video games. The simple reason is because it's fun, but why? Media scientists think that reason is immersion. Like when you read a book and you lose yourself in it, or watch a video, you start feeling with the characters. And as a psychological effect, you also can feel the danger or excitement the characters feel. This is why we as gamers hate it when the immersion breaks, like when characters do something nonsensical or when the story evolves into something illogical. When I saw the scene around me, my immersion was already cracking. First of all, why are the slaves mining with pickaxes? Even as slaves, it would be faster to give them modern technology. Why are they malnourished? Slaves with a full stomach can work harder. And also they should use cameras instead of having so many people watching the slaves one by one. At this point it was nonsensical to me. This was one of the many surprises for me later. How you look under the mask is unknown and a mystery. Unless you use cosmetics. These stay on when cutscenes play, so don't use them for the sake of your own immersion. At least your first time. After Doc treats us, we go into our shed and get some rest. The next day, we get an enemy cutscene. Some unarmored people attack a random train and a pink-haired woman escapes from both groups. The attackers are the Danon resistance, which we find out later. The woman gets touched by a man who, as a result, gets to be in pain. The lecture, no touching without consent. I said that wearing cosmetic items during the game breaks immersion, but it's really funny. I later removed them. We find the woman and escape with her. We get chased, and for a malnourished slave in a swimsuit we fight pretty well. We get help from a man who's called Zephyr. He punches plate armor with his fist. The scene ends with us crashing into another wagon. We switch to another character called Balsef, who is obviously an enemy. Notable here is that there is something called a crown contest, and Balsef failed twice. Iron Mask wakes up in a resistance hideout. The pink-haired woman is held prisoner within the base. The woman who was with us also gives answers about various topics, which is excellent compared to Genshin Impact, where everything is shoved into your face. Here you can get the information but are not forced to. I prefer it that way. Iron Mask arrives when they talk to the prisoner. Her name is Shion. She is a Renan, and the only way to tell a Renan apart from a Danon is if their eyes light up. That's why the Resistance call them Bright Eyes as a slur. The Resistance removes the stone that was put into their hands as a symbol of resistance, which is pretty stupid, because now they are easily identifiable. Having the option of blending in with the rest of the slaves and using guerrilla tactics would be a huge advantage. On the other hand, if the lords suspect having resistance members within their slaves, they could purge them periodically. This happened in real life history, not with slaves but with terror groups and rebels. Those groups even intended for a purge, to make the populace hate the regime and get more members. This game does not go there. Another important piece of information is that the Danons can't use astral arts, which is magic. The hideout gets attacked, which was to be expected, and we have to battle our way out. The combat in the Rise is real time and you can evade, block and use 3 to 6 different attacks called arts, with a stamina system represented by the blue squares. The combat in the Rise has a good premise, but does not do anything with it. From the start to end, combat feels the same, and I later turn it to auto battle because after 30 fights you've seen enough of it. You will have to deal with hundreds of battles and defeat thousands of enemies that in essence don't require better player skills, just better character stats. If you are underleveled, you can't do anything against a higher level enemy, and if you have higher stats, you can play as bad as you like, you will win anyway. Managing your boost attacks, which you will get later, is more engaging. Don't feel bad to turn on auto battle. The story has enough going for it, and you can gloss over the underwhelming combat. There is another problem with the combat. Hear this. The characters shout out every move they do like Power Rangers. It's non-stop. I hope I don't need to rant over this. The example should be enough by itself. We meet Shion, who is in trouble with some soldiers, and save her. We also get our first stylized conversation between party members, made like a comic with panels. I don't have a strong opinion about them. We meet Zephyr and he suggests that we move together as we are all wanted by the Renans, which is a bit odd as Shion just agrees to go with her kidnapper. but she doesn't have much options to begin with. Outside, Shion gets hit by an arrow and she suddenly spits out fire. We try to pull out the arrow and it turns into a blazing sword. You never get an answer why it's a blazing sword. We also see that Shion has the Fire Master Core embedded into her body, and the Renans want it. We only find out later what a Master Core is. With the blazing sword we roast the incoming soldiers. Using the blazing sword burns the user. This can be healed, but it's still painful, so only Iron Mask can use it. Naturally, Shion sees the potential in it and she decides to travel with Iron Mask. Even the game notes that it's pretty coincidental that those characters meet.
A sword that sears the hand of he who wields it, and a healing art to mend. A man numb to pain, and a woman whose very touch deals nothing but.
We learn that Calaglia, that's the region we are in, is enclosed by a wall called the Gates of Fire, and that besides Renans, no one can get in or out. After some battles we decide to rest, and in the camping menu, the 2 DLC reminders are, in contrast to the ones in the main menu, not okay. Having ads mid-game in a AAA game is for me a game sin. And yes, Arise is a AAA game. It costs full price. Using price as a measurement should be the best method for deciding the quality. When you pay the same amount of money, then you should also expect the same quality. The price has to be justified. So we also have to judge a AAA price as AAA budget. DLCs should almost always remain in the background, like the main menu, not having them as ads plastered across the game. In the camp we talk, later make food for buffs, and befriend our teammates. We can also watch old panel conversations and cutscenes. The conversation that follows was very surprising and important for me.
A Master Core, huh? Now I see. So that's why Balsef's cronies were so desperate to catch her.
Is that what it's called? The jewel in her chest?
Oh, right. You don't remember a damn thing, do you? Fair enough. Guess it's time to fill you back in. Tell me, you ever wonder why we Danans are made to work ourselves to the bone, day in, day out?
Well, when you put it like that, I always just assumed we were mining resources for them.
And don't you think it'd be quicker if they used all that high-powered tech they have? Why go to all the trouble of relying on weak human labor? Listen, what the Renans are really after isn't resources or minerals. It's astral energy. They're harvesting the astral energy that sleeps inside all matter in life forms. And they're doing it the same way they have for the past 300 years, using us Danans as mere siphons.
Right. They have machines for minerals, but extracting from Danans requires spirit cores. Any astral energy collected passes through a spirit vessel on its way to being stored in a master core.
It was not a mistake in world building with the pickaxes and stuff. It makes sense after hearing this. We also learn that the crown contest is decided by who gains the most astral energy, and the winner will be crowned sovereign, the ruler over Renan. The energy is stored in a master core, and Shion managed to steal the fire master core from Balsef. And she wants to kill all the lords, so our goals align. We arrive in Uzbek, which is a Danan settlement. At least that's what they call it, but it's more of a slave camp. The resistance hides here because the Renans don't have any guards in Uzbek because the Danans outnumber the Renans. Again, cameras. In Uzbek we get new clothes, but Shion wants something more special, so we have to look into an old Renan depot.
What is it?
When we come back, we hear that Moskul got attacked. That's the location you started in. Attacked is not really the right term here. The Renans decided to slaughter the Danans, probably to lure out the resistance, and that works. Doc tells us that something like this always happened whenever the Resistance does something, which makes sense. It's good that they included this. Slavery is one of the most gruesome misdeeds ever done in human history, but it's usually just brought down in media to just heavy labor, and it's rarely mentioned how slaves were tortured and mistreated. What they don't include is rape, which is, considering the age restrictions the developer probably aimed for, understandable. But that did happen to slaves, and historians even said that one of the reasons slavery got abolished was that they were children of both slaves and masters, which resulted in better treatment overall. Renans and Danans don't look different, and would be very realistic if children happen due to rape from the Renans. It's a little crack in the world building, but perfectly understandable, as not every game can be super dark in tone, and it could be much darker if taken realistically, like organ harvesting, child abuse, torture, and other Catholic weekend activities. We even see an effect on the victim's mentality, as Doc says that this was lucky, as the victim accepts his role and becomes docile. We retaliate because for the first time we have a strong weapon that enables us to do so. The Resistance fights to the castle as vanguard, while your team heads to Balsaf directly. We arrive in his throne room and fight against him. Here we also see special boost strikes, which is a variant of the boost strikes. The game tells you that if you have a high combo, normal boost strikes happen more often, which is a lie. These boosts always happen at certain thresholds, depending on the enemy, most at Half-Life and Almost Dead. The game makes the enemy even immortal against normal attacks, so can finish the enemy more stylish. Special boost strikes are for bosses and can interrupt them or help you progress. They are more linear than what the game tells you. There is very little management on your part. Balsaf manages to damage our mask, which will first reveal part of Iron Mask's face, and his name, which is Orphan. Balsaf goes on the roof in the meantime, where we resume our fight. Present in the fight is a huge lava elemental that will eat Balsaf after we defeat him. Shion thinks it's a manifestation of astral energy. In the fight, the gates of fire are destroyed, so Calaglia is not isolated anymore. You pass out for 3 days and wake up in Ulzebek. The Renans fled, and the Danans in Calaglia have freedom for the first time in 300 years. I hoped a bit for base building or something, but I got disappointed. We check the gates of fire, and right on time another character comes from outside Calaglia. Her name is Rinwell. Rinwell comes from Cislodia and hopes that you can also free her people, because they heard rumors about it. Now let's look at Rinwell. Isn't she a bit odd? Wherever we go, slaves wear rags and look poor. She doesn't. Not only does she have good clothing, she also has accessories, which no slave has. When she came, I really suspected her of betraying us or being a spy.
Please, I swear it's true. My people are dying. I risked my life trying to get here so I could find help.
We learned that Cislodia is a very cold place. Rinwell is not really dressed for that weather. That's a bit of a problem for me, because the character clothing does not matter. Cold or heat are just things that happen to other people, not your group. I would have appreciated if he would get warm clothes for Cislodia, but that never happens. Rinwell has a deep hate for Renans, and she often has scenes where she looks very ominously. Like she has something to hide, which made me suspect her even more. But let's talk about Sapphire. The game often tells he joins the party or leaves it, and you can also see him fight, but he never gets an icon or is in the menu. You also can't control him. In the story, he takes up a mentor role, often giving advices and being the wise guy.
Are you still a slave?
Me? No.
Then tell me what it means to live unshackled. I'll tell you what it means. It means living on your own terms, being your own master, thinking and making decisions for yourself, and being prepared to accept the consequences. Understand?
Yeah, I think so.
Those are huge death flags. I hated this because giving me strong indicators for a character's death is just one step away from telling me outright. Imagine starting a new series or a new game and it will be said which character dies. I retract my opinion later about this, but I think it's important to talk about this before he dies, so you can understand where I come from. We come to Thessalonia and Rinwell tells us that everyone mistrusts everybody, and denunciating other people is encouraged and the norm. There's a huge emphasis about betrayal, and I was sure at this point, and right, that during this chapter you get your obligatory betrayal with someone that has to happen in any long story. We enter a small town where Renans are currently arresting people, which is technically not true as slaves aren't free so you can't arrest them. Among the Renans is Law, Zephyr's son. While fighting him, Zephyr refuses to hurt him, and as Law tries to attack Zephyr, he gets downed by Rinwell who, to everyone's surprise, uses astral arts. More enemies come in and for no logical reason, Zephyr decides to stay behind, which is a bit aggravating. We escape and Rinwell tells us that she's able to use astral arts as a Danon is because her family always practiced magic since ages ago. The Danons did hunt her family down even before the Renans attacked, which gives our characters the insight that oppression is not something that comes only from Renans, it's part of human nature. Remember when we are told that Danons cannot use magic? It was wrong, and that's something good. Many writers have the tendency to make their characters their omniscient mouthpiece, and everything they say is the absolute truth. Few authors write their characters being wrong about something and stating facts that are untrue because of their limited perspective. This makes the story much more believable and better, because not only leaves it much more open for surprises, but it also shows that each character has his own limited view and will say things to you out of conviction and sometimes false knowledge. In fact, many things that we are told are wrong but we don't know yet. We decide to save Zephyr and travel to Thessalon, the capital of the region. Thessalonia is always dark. The Renans harvest the light astral energy in this region, which blocks the sun. 300 years without sunlight would kill most life besides mushrooms. No trees or grass, but the villagers are fine and even have cows. We arrive in Thessalon and get to meet Manek, the leader of the resistance. He was instantly promoted to candidate number 2 for betrayal. They also toned down on brutality, as the slaves aren't mistreated as much. Of course, they are not in a good position, but compared to Kalakliga, it's practically Eden. No heavy labor, clothes and a home. All considered, it's not that bad. Our first goal is to find out where Zephyr is, and when we wander around, we find Law and detain him. He tells us, without asking, that Zephyr concentrated so much on the resistance after his mom died, that he left home and escaped by hiding on a transport train. Law is not that interesting, sorry. He also says, after he complains about his sad childhood, that his father is going to be executed, and we tell that to the local resistance. The hideout gets attacked and we have to escape to the sewers. For some reason, developers are obsessed with sewers, while I never met a gamer who likes sewer levels. The level design is also one of the big weaknesses of Tales of Arise. The sewers are not functional. No one would build sewers like this. Most places have no logic behind them. I wish they would have put more effort behind this. What's worse is that the sewer levels are just an excuse to give the player a new gauntlet, because we later reform at a new hideout without problem. The execution is about to start and we head to the plaza. Right as we try to escape, Manek betrays us and is the lord of the region. It does not make sense for him to go undercover, he literally owns the life of the Danons. Maybe he was just bored. He also uses his moment of surprise to finish off the character who's already unable to fight, which is just plain stupid. And as it was foreshadowed, Zephyr dies.
Please, open your eyes!
I'm sorry. I can't stop the poison's advance.
Thank you.
Zephyr!
The struggle's in your hands now. Law,
I'm here. I'm here, Dad. Please just...
Oh, I can't see you. Are you there? Oh. Oh. Listen, I've always...
Dad.
I'm not that sad that Seffi is dead, I'm sad because Law is now part of the gang. This is one of the most idiotic parts in the story. We head straight to the palace and attack Ganabelt. Oh yeah, that's the name of the lord. He was so non-existent that I didn't even have to mention him. Why couldn't we just do that from the start? Nothing changed. The troops are as strong as before and we also have the same amount of people. Nothing would have changed if we would have done that outright. It's just stupid. Before we fight him, we see some relics of the past. Among them, an armor and weapons. That we just leave there because our leather-ass clothes are surely enough. We find Ganabelt, we fight him, we kill him. That's it. He was probably one of the weakest lords in regards to the story. After he dies, the darkness ends, which sounds cooler than it is.
So much for Ganabelt. Good riddance.
You said it.
So, was the Lord of Calaglia like Ganabelt too?
No. Balsef was huge, a real tough guy act. Now that I think of it, his crest was different too. His was a flaming cross.
Ah, I see. Anyway, what do you guys plan on doing from here?
We keep moving. 3 Renin Lords remain, and we won't rest until their thrones are empty as well.
We also pick up the armor after the fight. Then we go to Menancia.
We're finally here. Elda Menancia, the land of green. The place certainly lives up to its name, doesn't it?
Yeah, just feel that breeze. It's like night and day compared to Calaglia and Cislodia.
Unsullied, fertile land, as far as the eye can see. That's beautiful.
Menancia is beautiful and the village before its capital strange. The Danans look happy and healthy and the Renans are peaceful. The capital, Vicint, is the same. We are told that the Lord of Menancia, Dohalim, freed the slaves 7 years ago and made fair rules for all. What I like is that our characters don't trust this as a consequence of the last region's betrayal. We want to learn more and ask the citizens. We don't find any hidden agenda and go to the quarry where we have a locked door and meet a new character.
I presume you're Alphen, of Orbis Calaglia? I'm Captain Kisara of the Elda Menancia Guard.
Just Kisara? No last name would make you a Danan.
So it does. Is that a problem?
The guard. Wait, so you're saying the Lord of Elda Menancia has Danans protecting him?
Kisara tells us that because Dohalim saved the Danans from slavery, she chooses to serve him and is very loyal. To be real honest here, I think she's the best take on a female paladin I have ever seen. She tells us that behind this door is a medical facility, which is odd, because it's in a quarry. A quarry! Hey, where do we build the hospital? Here with fresh air, good road connection for fast treatment and easy access? No, we place it deep down in the earth so our nurse Balrog can cure the ill. Anyway, Dohalim invites us to the palace to talk with us.
Pretty fancy place they got here.
There's no way this isn't a trap.
Your guest, my lord.
Thank you, Kisara. You're the wielder of the blazing sword, the liberator of Calaglia. You do dress humbly for someone of such grandeur. But where are my manners? I am the ruler of Elda Menancia. I'm Lord Dohalim Ilkaris.
Okay, look.
Lord Dohalim.
Lord Dohalim.
Lord Dohalim came along.
I'm Lord Dohalim Ilkaris.
I know he's called Dohalim, but I still hear Dovahkiin, I'm sorry. Also his character design is way off. This is not a discussion about race. In this fictional universe, the human species is divided into two races, Danans and Renans, and our red-haired Dragonborn is definitely a Renan. It is also not a problem that he is tanned. The problem is he's the only person that is tanned. We play on a whole planet. Why are there no other phenotypical differences between the people? You know, like in our own real world? If there were only people of one look, I wouldn't agree, but I could understand that maybe this world doesn't have that much different topography, that other phenotypical characteristics could emerge, but they made a model with tanned skin and did not use it anywhere else. I bet there were at least two teams. One team had the character design and the other had the world building as a job. And those two never talk to each other. There are farmers on the way to the capital that work under the sun the whole day, but they are so white, old women give them poisoned apples. Besides that, he is an okay character, an oddball but okay. He is not interested in the crown contest. We see that he had to kill a friend, and he tells us that the crown contest is not a choice. They are forced to be a lord, which results in fierce competition. We already know from Balsef that if you fail the crown contest, you stay as lord. Dohalim's approach makes sense. He has a peaceful realm, good food and little to worry, so he just improves the lives of everyone and lives his life in peace. After dinner with him we sleep at an inn, but we don't trust him blindly. I really like the premise of this region. Shion needs all master cores for a reason we don't know yet, but Dohalim is not evil. In fact, he improves the lives of Danans, which would mean that the others should protect him. This creates an internal conflict, but now the writers have to show how skilled they are. They could make it so that we need to find a solution for this conflict or have to talk this out. The lazy way this could be resolved is an external threat that comes in and forces us to act or gives us the master core. External threats as a solution is overused and never really a good story plot point. To give a better example, imagine having a crew. One half wants to kill someone and the other spare him. Suddenly a comet strikes and kills the person. That's a solution via external threat. Sheep, lazy and dogshit. Let's see where this goes. At the inn we meet a black cat with something on its collar. And Law follows it for some unspecific reasons, which means he doesn't have one. I personally don't follow random cats just because they have an interesting color. We get followed by Kisara, which turns into a fight. But we get stopped by Miguel.
Hold your horses. I'm the one who summoned you all here. Well, maybe not all. Nice of you to drop by, Kisara. It's been a while.
You two know each other?
Hello, brother.
For siblings, you two don't exactly look like you're on the best of terms.
That's because Miguel here is a traitor.
He says that he is no traitor and still loyal to Dohalim. He also shows us the hollowing. This happens when people get drained of their astral energy, and that this process can be sped up by a certain fruit that circulates in town. He also was imprisoned once and accused falsely. There he was fed this fruit. He wants to show this to Lord Dohalim and asks for our help. We arrange a meeting and Miguel wants to show something to Dohalim. We go behind the locked door where there is no medical facility but Zugels instead. We come to an underground sea that has a weird silver color. Miguel tells us that this happens when a person goes full hollow and doesn't kindle the bonfire.
When a life form's drained of its astral energy, its physical form breaks down completely. A death leaving no physical remains. All that's left is a reflective substance, the only proof that matter once existed at all. I have one last piece of evidence, Lord Dohalim. This is a fruit of Helgen, the cause of all of this.
What are you doing, Miguel?
This is terrible. His death plays out far too long. He is reciting all of Hamlet while he's dying and even gives some important informations. What was his plan if it would kill him instead instantly? Then everyone would have a lot of questions unanswered. This whole scene should be cut down to 1/5 of its time. Despite the bad direction, the plot is not that bad. Not all Renans are happy under Dohalim, as they see their status as superior humans in danger, and so they plot the harvest of astral energy behind Dohalim's back. Kisara cries over her brother's remains, which triggers PTSD in Dohalim, and he attacks the group in confusion. We beat him and Dohalim tells us about his Vietnam flashback. He can't bear to hear people crying or suffering due to his experience during the competition for the crown contest. That's why he improved the life and freed the Danans. Kisara is disappointed and angry at Dohalim, as I was first at the writing. It does not matter for what reasons he freed the slaves, as long as those reasons aren't atrocious. Every person has a reason for doing something. A firefighter or a policeman who saves a life is paid to do so. There's always a reason. What did Kisara expect? Even altruism is broken down feeling better because you helped someone. It's a pursuit of your own happiness. After thinking about it some more, I think Kisara is also understandable. First of all, she just learned that hundreds of Danans are killed behind her back. Her brother, which, as we learn later, she loved dearly, just died before her eyes. Now her only anchor, which is Dohalim, tells her that what she sees in him is wrong. Loyalty is a very complex emotion, but you feel it towards a person or an organization because of what this person or organization is. Let's say you are loyal to a leader in your country, and you find out that this leader killed people in secret. Your trust and your loyalty is betrayed. Or you have a partner who you love for his ambition and you find out that this was only your interpretation and he or she is not ambitious at all. Then your emotions, which build on your perception of that person, breaks with this. From a neutral onlooker standpoint, Dohalim is not in the wrong, but Kisara is loyal to a Dohalim that in truth had different reasons. No matter if those reasons are justified or not, they are not the ones Kisara wanted to believe in. This is good character design, as Dohalim and Kisara each have their own view and reasons, and they act in accordance to that. You have to think about each person's perspective to see this, as from the outside their actions might not make sense. Like I was saying, Dohalim's reasons don't matter. For Kisara, they do. He walks away and leaves the Master Core behind. We take it, naturally, and gather at the inn. A guard comes by and says that Lord Dohalim kicked out all the Danans from the palace. We assume it's Dohalim's second in command who does this and is behind the conspiracy. We go to the palace to stop Menancia from getting how it was before. We find that guy, who's named Kalzik by the way, and he wants to take the astral energy to a different lord. He summons a big Sugel that we defeat. Dohalim swipes by and tells us that the Danans and Renan supporters, among them Dohalim, defeated the traders that occupied the city. He made up his mind and wants to fight for coexistence, no matter the reason, and joins the crew. With Dohalim and Kisara, the party is complete.
Did you come to say goodbye?
Actually, I was wondering if you could use another companion.
Huh? Well, we certainly don't mind you coming along. We just figured you'd stay behind and help rebuild. These people could use you.
I thought much the same thing. However, in the end, something changed my mind. Ever since Miguel died, I've been thinking a lot. About where I went wrong, what I should have done differently. You know, that sort of thing.
We take off to Mahasar, and on the way we get attacked by a wild edgelord. While fighting, Alphen's mask is about to break and the edgelord just goes away. Whenever someone edgy is involved, his or her actions don't really make sense, so I just stop questioning them. We arrive in Nice.
Are we in the right place? This place looks like a mess.
Yes, this is Niez, the capital of Mahag Sar.
I don't see any signs of people. And the buildings.
Yeah, this doesn't seem like the kind of place people would actually live.
No soldiers, no Danans, not a soul to be seen. Yet look at these facades. This is clearly a Renan district.
Hey, check out that drawing on the castle gate. That's the Darkwing's crest.
The city was liberated, not our way but the usual bloody way. We speak to a townsperson that leads us to their leader, Dedaim. He hates the Renans, which is not surprising, but he's also an asshole to his fellow Danans. He tells us that the lord of the region, Almetrea, is on the run and the Danans follow her. The lord is probably at a nearby forest, so we search there and find nothing but laboratories and experiments. Shion tells us why she wants the Master Core and something called Renna's Alma, some sort of concentrated astral energy. She informs that power that hurts others by pure touch are, to no surprise, not great if you try to socialize, and Shion wants to get rid of them. She thinks with the power of the Alma and the Master Cores there is a chance. Probably something that has been passed down in her family from Naori, but we don't know that yet. Because the forest is void of all things that may interest us, we go back to the city and ask the asshole again. It seems that someone had success and catch the Lord and proceed to execute her.
Is that? Yes. It's Lord Almadria Kynaris.
Please stop! No good can come of such hatred. Stop or there'll be no turning back. Is this supposed to be justice? Astral energy? Why now? You don't think that...
The fruit of Helgen.
Just...
Okay, we go right from the strongest chapter to the worst. First of all, her love is so bad, which is a strong contrast to the rest of the excellent voice acting. So she presumably staged the whole coup, get an execution and provided the fruit. What would she have done if they instead beheaded her on sight? And also, why all this? She's pretty strong, and if she wanted to, she could have forced the slaves to eat the fruit. The lack of logic is aggravating. Rinwell gets mad and attacks her because Almetrea killed her family, which she reveals later, and it gets even more stupid.
I'll make you pay for what you did to my parents!
What do we have here? Could it really be the witch from Dana? Honestly, I thought I had wiped all of you out of existence back then. I guess there was one survivor after all.
Hey, Rinwell!
Shut up! This is the only thing that's keeping me going anymore. Stay out of my way or I'll kill you!
Rinwell.
I'll kill you. I swear it. I will kill you! What did you... Why are you defending her?
I'm not really sure, you know. But when I look into your eyes, I can't let you do it.
What about you? Are you not the one who got revenge for his father? Don't I deserve that as much as you?
Making your own character say he doesn't know why and making him do something stupid is the capitulation of any writer. It's absolutely incredible how they can write something this stupid. I'm just flabbergasted. We killed 2 lords so far, and she killed at least 100 people, just now. There is no justifiable reason defending her. Maybe he got horny because of depressed physics. I may trade some big Zoogle while she goes to sea. This is also the chapter where I needed to farm in my no DLC run. In my intro I said that Arise is criticized for being pay to win, and right now I want to expand on that point. If you use all DLCs, you will have no need to farm and you are not challenged in any way. If you don't use the DLCs, you need to do most side quests and farm a lot. In my pay to win run, I used the DLCs first in this chapter, because of 2 reasons. First, I wanted to see when do I need the DLCs to overcome the increasing stats of my opponents. If I would use them from the start, there is no real test. If you ask me, is a level 40 character against a level 1 character hard? The answer is obvious. The second reason is effectiveness. The DLCs give you flat level ups, so you can either be catapulted from level 1 to about level 40 or from level 30 to about level 70. The later is more effective. The DLC weapons are obsolete in Cyslodia and level 30 is about the level right now. The DLCs also include increased XP and SP and such stuff. That stays effective. Forcing the player to engage in all side quests to get over a main story challenge is maybe not preferable, but far from forcing the player to use DLCs. Not to go all old timer, but older games usually expected as much from you. Try playing only the main story of Baldur's Gate 2 on a harder difficulty. Good luck. You can also play this game on easy, which negates the stat increases practically. It's still an atrocious practice, and just because they didn't make it full pay to win does not clear them from the charges that they still tried to. Attempted murder against murder, so to speak. Do not give in and buy the DLCs. You can use cheat code engine if you need a power boost. As far as I know, there is no law against cheating, so just use that. I looked a bit into that topic, and in the Digital Millennium Copyright Act it is stated that modifying your own game data is legal. After defeating her pet, we follow her, but we need a boat. Luckily there is a wharf and Danans who can drive the ship, which is strange. Why would the Renans teach that to the Danans? But never mind. We take off and dock on her ship, which is bigger than I expected, and fight through it. We find Almetrea on the deck.
Almetrea.
What's this? I thought you couldn't stand the sight of me. Go on, little one. Show me the full force of that hatred of yours. Otherwise, run and hide like the rat you are.
That's enough! How can you smile while causing pain to so many others?
That is the way of those who possess great power. The very way we Renans live by. Those with power set the example, and those without it are forced to obey.
Our character spouts non-stop platitudes out of the high fantasy guidebook. Also, the villains are one-layered. They are just evil without reason, and you can already see where the story goes, and I think this is on purpose. We will come to that later. Almedrea gets beaten and edgelord comes by and kills her, because that's what edgelords do. His name is Volran.
It's that swordsman again!
Oh, Lord Volran, what brings you here? No, forgive me. I've forgotten myself. Please allow me to make it up to you, my lord.
Silence now, wretched snake. Does it hurt? It should. That pain is proof you're still alive. Enjoy it.
He breaks our mask and Alphen gets his memory back, and his sense of pain. Shion gets kidnapped, and when trying to reach out for her, the newfound pain numbs Alphen. Shion is shocked and loses the will to fight. Again, this was foreseeable. I knew before it happened that something like this occurs. We get shipwrecked. We see in his memory that Alphen was a research subject who was kidnapped from Dana. We witness a ceremony between Alphen and a woman named Naori, who looks a lot like Shion. Something goes wrong, and Alphen wakes up on a beach. And because you can feel pain now, the blazing sword is off limits. Dohalim and Rinwell find Alphen and guide him to a nearby village that is hidden away from the Renans. Shion was our main healer, and without her the battles are much more difficult. I rushed this chapter pretty much and did the side quests after I've gotten Shion back. In the camp, Alphen tells the gang of his memories. He was on Lenegis, the moon, 300 years ago, and was made the sovereign through experiments. Alphen does not know what it means to be a sovereign, but what we can deduct from this, it's not being a ruler. He was not the only subject, but the only one that survived. Naori was the one who put the mask on him for reasons unknown. We travel to Ganath Haros to rescue Shion. Volran uses mind control to control the Danans and sacrifices them in a very factory kind of manner. Shion is also mind controlled and fights us pretty much at the start.
Believe me when I say, you are not alone. So please, don't give up on us. We will bear your thorns together. I swear it. Shion.
It's very cheesy. We confront Volran and it turns out that Volran is also a sovereign. We battle him twice and kill him. Now we have all the master cores and they should make Renna's armor. We get manipulated by a woman in red and she creates Renna's armor and then leaves with it. We also find out that Shion is the maiden, but we don't know yet what that entails. And then this happens. I didn't think the game would end here, as there are a lot of unanswered questions. And for a Tales of game, it would be a bit short, but thanks to this intro I was not sure anymore. The game goes on after this. I think Bandai did something insanely brave with Tales of Arise, because you have to realize something. Many of you may be familiar how storytelling works. Dramatic curves is something most people had to deal with in school. But nowadays, Campbell's hero's journey is more popular, so let's analyze the story with this. Alphen has his slow start. He meets Shion and his mentor Sapphire after a while, then his mentor dies and he has to deal with most things himself. Alphen meets tons of people, has to rethink a lot of his opinions, then there is a big internal conflict. He learns about his past, Shion gets abducted and he needs to free her. Then he meets the last boss who is a Zaroran, defeat him and Dana is free. With Voran's death you should be at the end of Hero's journey, and that's why many people foresee the events. Everything you know about thematic development leads to the conclusion the story is over soon. This is the finale, but then the game gives you a second intro, which could very well be a teaser for the next game or an epilogue. But no, the game goes on. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think Bandai did that on purpose, and it did surprise me. What's more is that the story and the characters in the first half are clearly in the high fantasy genre. The villains are evil and stay evil without proper reason. They are one-dimensional. Your actions are always good, the victim of abuse is the good person, and so on. There's a clear contrast between good and evil, a world-changing quest, and an epic adventure. Those are the characteristics of high fantasy. But with this intro that changes. Not all. It's still mostly high fantasy, but now it gets more complicated. It feels like Tales wanted his first half to be high fantasy and his second to be low fantasy. Because they needed to keep the characters, they are not fully successful in that part, but you can see the intentions. They did something similar in the past with Tales of Zestiria and Berseria, both respectively high fantasy and low fantasy. I liked Zestiria more after realizing both games were one concept, and I liked the first half of Arise more because of this realization. It was brave to leave this for the player to realize, and for me it pays off. We are at the now freed city and a month has gone by. We do minor tasks for the people and then something happens.
Alphen, this is bad! Look at the sky! Huh?
This is some kind of zap that harvests the astral energy from the planet and shoot it right to the moon Lenegis. There's just one problem: planets rotate. This should only be working for about 10 seconds each day. If the planet doesn't rotate, one half of the planet would be burned and the other frozen. We need to find a boat to get to the new structure, so we open our way to the rest of the continent. The stream of astral energy is visible from Cislodia. And it's a good thing they don't go much deeper into the geography of Dana, because there would be a need to explain a lot. We come back to the harbor from before and luckily our ship made it out. We shudder it to the Power Ranger beam and it looks almost organic. Rinwell starts hearing voices, which is a bit strange to say. I mean, even if I would start hearing voices, I wouldn't tell people randomly. We fight our way to the center of the wedge, that's what our characters call it, and we see a beam of light, and Rinwell goes right into it, claiming it's harmless. Which turns out to be true, but it's still a pretty big risk going into an energy beam because the voices in your head tell you it's fine.
You okay? Hey, are you crying?
I'm not the only one.
I heard it. Whatever it was, I heard it.
As did I. I'm not sure I'd call it a voice, but it was there.
What in the world just happened?
We later speculate that it was the voice of Dana. When enough astral energy gathers, it gains consciousness. That's what happened with Balseph. Dana's energy is usually way too dispersed around the planet to develop a mind, but in that beam it was concentrated enough. We managed to interrupt the energy flow, but the danger still remains, in the form of Lenegis. I want to note here that I'm bridging over many events that concern character development or just banter. This is a huge part of the game and makes your characters feel more human, but this sort of empathy builds over countless interactions and can't be conveyed right with a review video, or at least my skills are insufficient for that. We come back to Uzbek, which is my favorite word in this video, and they still didn't manage to get better clothing or housing. From Uzbek we want to search for a starship that Alphen probably had when he escaped Lenegis 300 years ago. We find it and camp there before setting off. Shion is missing and we find her by the ship. She wants to go alone as some sort of self-sacrifice, but Alphen won't let her. She comes down and tells Alphen that her thorns are not only a useful paladin skill except in Act 4, but also make her immortal, which is a lot to take in. They don't go into depth how that works, but if those thorns heal every round she receives, would they obtain infinite biomass by cutting her flesh? Feed it first to the pigs, then you avoid cannibalism and solve world hunger. Okay, jokes aside, her immortality is not reflected in the gameplay and never comes up again in the story or as a central point, so it doesn't matter that much. What's more important is that those thorns are so intertwined with her that she will die removing them. She feels that those thorns are something more sinister and could lead to the end of the world. That's why she's ready to kill herself by removing them.
I wish we had never met. Then I wouldn't have to feel this way.
Shion!
Alphen?
Only living for the sake of dying is no better than being a slave. How can you endure this?
Alphen.
It's not fair. I don't care what anybody says. I won't let it happen. We can fight this. We'll fight until the end together. Isn't that what you said to me before?
Even if it should mean that it'll be the end of everything else too?
Shion, what do you want? It's your decision, ultimately. But if you decide not to fight fate, I will. Even if I have to do it alone.
The group agrees to first deal with the issue at hand and then think of a solution when the time arrives. We set off with the ship and luckily we can control it. We arrive on Lenegis. We also discuss what a sovereign is and that no one ever saw a winner after the crown contest again, besides holograms. The Renans don't question this, as they are raised to not ask questions. That's not too far-fetched. Think of North Korea, where the citizens think Kim Jong-un is a god and even cry when he loses a few kilos, while the rest of the country starves. that sort of indoctrination can happen, as it happens right now in our real world. Lenegis is in turmoil, because the structure of the whole moon rearranged itself for the energy transfer, but most Renans survived. Among the survivors are Dohalim's friends you saw in the flashback. Dohalim killed his best friend, and that best friend's girlfriend hates him. Our goal is a zone where Renans are normally forbidden to enter. There we see another piece of Alphen's past.
Alphen.
You again.
Tomorrow's the spirit channeling ceremony. We'll finally play our parts as the Sovereign and Maiden. How have you been feeling?
What am I sovereign of? Shuffled from lab to lab, always treated like an experiment. Whenever they look at me, all they see is a Danon. I don't even know what their precious ceremony's for, let alone what they're going to force me to do as the Sovereign. Tell me, if we're both in the same boat, why do you seem so calm right now?
No choice. Becoming the Maiden's not something I wanted for myself. But they said Rena's prosperity depended on it. How could I say no after that?
Still, as a Renan, at least you got to decide. Good for you. Meanwhile, I was taken from my homeland. You aren't the captive one here.
It isn't right what they did to you, and I'm sorry for what it's worth. When this is over, I swear I'll help you get home. I can't do this alone. One more day.
How could I say no to that? It's not like I have any choice in the matter anyway. So, what's your name?
It's Naori. Naori Imaris. Try to remember this time.
You don't act like them. Like the other Renans, I mean. How come you treat me like a person?
Because you are. It's true we come from different worlds. But neither one of us asked to be here right now. In that sense, you and I are much the same. We couldn't do this. We wouldn't be able to talk to each other as people if we didn't see the humanity in each other. So I suppose the question you should be asking is, why wouldn't I treat you like one?
You're not like the others.
Maybe they're not like me.
Here's what we'll do. We give them their damn ceremony. You get me to Dana. That'll be the end of it. I'm taking you at your word on this. I'm trusting you, not them. Naori.
This time everyone else saw it too, which means it's not just something Alphen remembers. And they assume it's because of astral energy that gathered in that zone, just like it happened before. I don't think so. First of all, when it happened before, it was a lot more astral energy, and Dana just managed to communicate with a very faint voice. Now there is considerable less astral energy, but there were clear voices and images. What's good is that the characters speculate, and that leaves room for them to be wrong. It still makes sense for them to assume it's because of the astral energy, because that was the reason something like this happened the last time. Naori also felt the end of the world, and Shion is a descendant of Naori. Being a maiden seems like something that a person inherits, while being a sovereign is something that a person is made into. The thorns consist of dark astral energy only Rena has. It's not clear if Renans can use dark astral energy. With knowledge we will come to later, it should not be possible. For the ceremony all elements need to be present, and so the thorns make sense. Danans or Renans can only have light, wind, earth, fire and water, and so dark has to be put into a person. This is my own speculation and may very well be wrong. The red woman from before, or a different one, controls Dohalim's friend and forces her to attack the group. This means two things. They understand human interactions and emotions, and they are ready to use them for their own end. Before she manages to summon another Sugel, we defeat her with the good old forced abortion punch. In this facility we find out that Voran was put through many painful tests, which damaged his psyche. Also, in 300 years of experiments, there were only 2 sovereigns, which makes them incredibly rare. So who's behind all this? Our characters do not know yet, but probably someone from the Renan homeworld. And here it was researched how to transport large amounts of astral energy from Dana to Rena. And we get another flashback.
Naori, I...
Don't talk. I have to do this. I gave you my word that I'd help you return to Dana. The next time you open your eyes, you'll be home.
But you...
My place is here with my people. I still have a duty to fulfill. I'm sorry for what you've endured. Renan never should have dragged you into this. It's not your burden to bear.
But...
The mask contains a sedative. It should keep your mind from tearing itself apart any further. Let yourself go to sleep. This should help with the pain. Time to go, Elfin. Farewell.
Naori...
His injuries are worse than I thought. Short-term treatment isn't going to cut it. I'll have to switch the healing pod to long-term hibernation mode. The chance of surviving hibernation's less than 10%? And worse, long-term use of the mask carries a high risk of damaging his mind and nervous system. But... If I don't head back, Lennigus will be nothing but ashes, and this starship along with it. I don't know if I can fulfill my promise to you, Alphen. But if doing this will grant you even the slightest chance, I have to try. I hope it's enough. Please, live for me, Alphen.
Normally it would be strange that she's talking to herself. Not that I do that or anything, but this is a vision that is shown per astral energy to your characters. Maybe there is some alteration done to these memories to convey certain parts better in a form of monologue. We find a ceremony room, where Alphen was 300 years ago. Naori appears again and tells that she failed the ceremony on purpose, because of the same vision that Shion has about the end of the world. We get new clothes through magic.
And they appeared now because...
Naori must have left them here for the new Sovereign and Maiden, knowing the day would come when they would need them in their fight against the Thorns.
Yeah, but how? We will not get an answer to this, so let's lay it down to rest. What's pretty interesting here is that the Red Woman is invisible to Renans. Usado's woman in a lot of cutscenes, but your Renan companions did not. Neither did the Lords. Those women rescued Volran and do something like a frost ceremony with him. And the Shamba is the replacement for the Maiden. Here we meet those women again and have to defeat them after they changed form. To be more precise, it's their true form, and the woman is a disguise. Volran was, like you, also abducted from Dana. Our characters react way too strong about this. We already know that Danans are capable of cruelty like Renans, so it should not be that big of a revelation that he killed Danans as a Danan. Midst conversation, another Red Woman appears and steals the armor. Then the Shamba burns down. Back in the living quarters we meet Dohalim's friend, who forgives him, and because the Renans need a leader now, Dohalim assumes that role and speaks to the citizens. And that's the only thing he does as a leader, which means Bethesda made defections. To find out more about the armor, we decide to travel to Rena. When we board our ship, we get ambushed again. They hack our system and instead of cancelling life support, they fly us away. They also start the energy sucking again. Meanwhile, we get saved by a non-hostile ship. After exploring a bit, we find another one of those strange creatures. This time it speaks to us.
I shall now answer your questions. We are Helganquil. The red women you encountered previously are a form of disguise we employ from time to time, but not our true form.
Helganquil?
You are on Date Phasal, a celestial base which drifted here by accident. The will of Rena's great spirit no longer reaches us here. Since my sudden separation from the Great Spirit's influence, I have used any and all means to extend my lifespan. As I have done so, I have also set out to monitor and research Rena and Dana from this position.
A question. What is this great spirit of which you speak? Is it something that rules over your kind?
Correct. The great astral spirit is a large mass of astral energy that fills all of Rena, one with its own will, a voice we cannot refuse.
A voice? Just like Dana.
The voice of the Great Spirit speaks to our hearts directly, and we have served it, without question, throughout the ages.
This may be the biggest surprise. The enemy is the whole planet. While Dana's astral energy is dispersed, Rena's is concentrated, so it formed a will. It controlled the Helganquil, the original people of Rena. The Renans are altered humans from Dana, abducted and bred by the Helganquil, which resulted in high adaptation for astral energy and bright eyes as a side effect. Very like the domestication experiments from Dimitri Beret. At this point I will use some future knowledge. Rena is trying to absorb the astral energy from Dana, and because its first plan with the Sovereign failed, it now uses plan B, which is the wedge. Apparently both worlds should have been one from the start, but they aren't. It is not stated who decided that or where they get their knowledge from, but it's important that Rena believes this. For that reason it tries to absorb Dana. But it is not a gluttonous planet that is evil. Rena is frightened. The astral energy runs out, and before the planets merge, Rena's will would dissipate. It's like having the prospect of being brain dead. Rena fears for its life, and it takes every chance for survival. At this point I have to think about my favorite and sadly deceased Arthur Terry Pratchett, who said he would gnaw a dead mole for a cure of his Alzheimer. I understand that perfectly. If someone tells me that I will be brain dead in 3 years and I have to eat another person's brain to prevent this, then I'm sorry, but I would value my own life about a total stranger's one. Rena is a frightened creature. The Helganquil are controlled in their actions, and Volran was experimented on, which resulted in his evil edginess. We see the Renans, our oppressors, that enslaved the Danans, living their own lives on Lenegis, raising their kids and going to work, because even them are gears in a machine. There are reasons for their behavior. Understandable reasons. That's what I meant with the contrast to the first half, where Balsif was evil and angry, Ganabelt was evil and sneaky, Kalzik greedy and evil, and Almitreya evil and horny. Our antagonists are now characters, and the planet Rena is more humanized than Balsif, who could appear in a children's book. I feel sorry for Rena, but I understand that we have to defeat it, because we also prioritize our own survival. The Helganquil we are talking to, Half-Wrecked 35, asks us to stop Rena and gives us our ship back. But the most promising way to defeat Rena is sacrificing Shion, which we don't agree to. We instead look for a different path, which is finishing the ceremony to control the astral energy and put Rena in a dormant state. By using the Alma and making the ceremony in Rena's core, we can control the astral energy, thus Rena, where we land.
There's nothing here. This weird ocean we're surrounded by just stretches out everywhere. Is this really where the Helganquil come from?
I don't sense even a trace of astral energy. This world is dead.
Then this must be the hollowing.
You mean to tell me this whole world, The entire ocean is... that stuff?
And it's covering everything. The entire planet.
This is what the Great Spirit does. After it depleted this planet of every last speck of astral energy, it went after Dana.
So arresting. This world of doom.
Back in its day, Rena was probably just as vibrant as Dana is. But after being robbed of its astral energy for so long, those days are gone and past. This is all that will remain.
So the Great Spirit took everything. It stole energy not just from living beings, but the land, the sea, everything.
And it bound the Helganquil in servitude, until their whole world was nothing but this. And by the looks of it, that's how it remains to this day. A world of death and emptiness.
Gameplay on Rena is a real drag. There's an onslaught of enemies to no end with mostly the same enemy types. Even with me being overleveled, every battle takes way much more time than it should be. We discuss another solution. If every Danon has astral energy within them and enough astral energy together can form a will, then if everyone thinks the same thing, it should form some sort of power like in that old show Escaflowne. But we are just 6 humans and an owl. There's no way we have enough astral energy inside us. If that would work with such few people, then any team-oriented sports competition should be in hell of an enemy game. What I suspect could work is the currently sucked energy from Dana together with our own will. Rinwell also discovers here what I already said, that Rena is trying to survive and that there was supposed to be one world.
I'm sorry. I really am. But I know now. I know how the Great Spirit thinks. I know what it wants, how it feels. Rena's Great Spirit wants to complete the world.
What's that supposed to mean? Are you saying it's trying to make something?
Yes, exactly. Originally, Dana and Rena were meant to be one world. But that never happened. They've stayed separated, and the Great Spirit wants to finish the process.
What do you mean, one world? How is that even possible?
I don't know, but its will is clear. That's what the Great Spirit is trying to accomplish. The only problem is that since Rena's energy isn't evenly spread like Dana's, it seems like it'll vanish before that happens naturally.
So it's trying to absorb Dana while it still can, so that it can force the 2 planets to unite. Is that what you're saying?
The Great Spirit is scared. But it's not scared the way a rational person would be. It's more raw and undiluted. Like just pure fear.
Like an animal, acting out of instinct. Although admittedly, an animal would be easier to communicate with.
The maiden has dark astral energy inside her, in the form of thorns. That energy originates from Rena and carries its will, and with it the will to survive. Rena's Alma is currently at the core of Rena, and to defend it, Rena projects its avatar, which we have to defeat. After this, we get deeper into the core and have to battle another boss. And at the end we have Rena's Alma for the ceremony. Volran is still alive and tries to interrupt us. He knew most of this all along and wanted to destroy Rena, which would result in Shion's death. While Shion keeps Rena in check, we have to defeat Volran one-on-one. Before his death, Volran destroys Rena's Alma out of being petty. With that, the only way should be using Shion and kill her along with the planet, but they discover that they can use Dana's energy. Every person has to think the same and make the 2 planets merge together peacefully.
Collective will of Dana, hear my plea! I want to save Shion! And I want to save Rena too! I want to end this cycle of one joy, constantly being sacrificed for another's pain! So please, grant us your strength!
Many may be familiar with Deus Ex Machina. It's a Latin phrase which means God out of the machine and comes from old Greek theater play. In those, characters came to a point where there were no way to solve the situation, but then, with the help of a built-in machine, they made an actor who presented a god fly and helped the actors out. Similar to this, it's used to describe a sudden, unforeseeable solution for a happy ending. And it has mostly negative connotation. That's because it breaks immersion and makes the reader or viewer think that the writer abandoned its own rules and world building. You can take this ending as a prime example for this. While there was no surprise solution, the merging of planets and Dana's will came up before, the other criteria fit. I would have preferred a darker ending. Maybe they would have to kill Shion, or just using the solution they were aiming for in the first place. There is no way that a majority of Dana thinks the same lines, and it was established that Dana's energy is too dispersed to form a will. Communicating with it should not be possible. The solution contradicts the rules. We already had solutions: completing the ceremony or sacrificing Shion. A third solution could be reversing Lenegis and make Dana absorb Rena, or destroying Lenegis and let Rena die by its own because it doesn't have enough resources on the planet anymore to build another moon. You can have prior solutions fail, but the new solution should be within the rules and a logical abstraction of given circumstances. The ending is bad. That's around 10 minutes out of an 80-hour game. But psychology tells us that the recency effect gives an ending a much stronger impression, and that's why endings are important. To make a bad analogy, if the last bit of a tasty meal tastes like shit, your aftertaste will be the same. For the last part, I want to talk about a few things that more or less didn't fit into the story. Progression is done through level ups, equipment, stats and SP. I mentioned level ups, but I did not say what they do because they only increase your stats, which in return makes you stronger. Equipment is the same. You go to a vendor, buy the newest equipment or forge the newest weapon. There are also accessories, but I didn't really engage with it because it was never worth it. You can also increase your stats with herbs you find or battle for in the arena that have the atrocious mechanic of raiding. If you go into the arena of Menancia and battle for some herbs, then you have to wait a whole hour before you can redo it, which is tedious. You can technically farm till your stats reach maximum. I tried that doing my no DLC run, which took 170 hours. Because I battled, then played a different game for an hour and then redid the battle, and repeated that for a week. With 170 hours, I didn't even get to max stats. Skills are another way to improve your stats. You get skill points after each battle or doing quests. The progression for skills is inverted, which means it's easier getting skills in the late game than in the early game, which should be the other way around, like with levels. In the early game you get a skill node which costs 1300 points to acquire all skills, and you get around 8 skill points for a battle, which makes roughly 160 battles. In the late game a node costs 5400 points, but you get around 50 points per battle, which is only about 110 battles. This sounds worse than it is because I often forgot that I even have skill points and didn't spend them, but I didn't encounter large problems. Your attacks also get better with use, but that's also something that sounds better than it is because that's something that happens anyway and doesn't need any specific action from the player. Progression that happens without any or only minor decision making from the player is as good as no progression system at all. If the game makes you automatically stronger with the enemy, or if the enemies and you are always on the same level, then that's the same. But then you would not buy the DLCs, right? Around Dana you find owls that you rescue. That's a lie. The game says you rescue them, but you just talk to them and then they fly home. That's not really a rescue. You find them by hearing them, and that's the odd part, they don't sound like owls.
Hoo-hoo! Hoo-hoo-hoo!
Ho ho ho! Ho ho ho!
Ooh.
They sound like people imitating owl sounds. That's what a real owl sound like.
You can even write up a little tooltip about how the skeleton boosts you with emergency power when it feels your movements consistent.
They could have just bought stock sounds or asked a Sue for recordings. Just googling it gives me over 30 different old sounds. Speaking of hearing, there are 4 different types of communication in Tales of Arise. Talking normally, cutscenes, the panel discussions, and, while you can move, on the bottom left corner there is some banter. I would have preferred to just listen to most of the panel discussions while I explore or battle, like an audio log. Then again maybe not, because you can miss them. If you move to a quest area, the banter gets disrupted and doesn't pick up again afterwards, so whenever it plays you have to stand around and wait till it finishes. Good level designers can make it so the banter has enough time till the next story event, but level design is not Arise's strength anyway. Which leads me to the next point: they tried to make the levels open worlds and gave your character a designated jump, but that's a lie. The game only has specific points where you can jump over something or fall down. It's linear level design disguised as open world. On a minor note, the rendering distance is something very short. I like that the menus changed throughout the story and with each new character, and also the character development. Something I criticized in Genshin Impact is the non-changing and almost non-existent disposition from one character to another. In Tales of Arise, our characters start with a bad relationship that develops over time to a friendship.
I don't know what's got you ticked off at me this time, but I suggest you keep your hands away from me.
No one asked you to help.
Rinwell, she healed its wounds. She's not trying to hurt it.
How can you be so...
Rinwell, I'm not like the rest of you.
Of course you are. No, I'm serious. Back when we first met, I think maybe then I did think we were different. But now I know that isn't true. You and I are the same, Xion. We're alike in more ways than you know.
So why did I go through the story while criticizing the game? That's because I think it's important to give the right context. I withhold informations because our characters don't have them at the time. So we have to judge the characters and the story with the information given to us at that moment. Taking things out of context or out of order would be an unfair judgment, and I would have to constantly backtrack. This video is over an hour long, so if I would cover a story point on minute 10 and then discuss it at minute 50, it would make it harder to follow. And most importantly, I enjoy videos of this format more. Thank you for watching, please subscribe and like, and farewell.
Woohoo!